Welcome to the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, a show that features conversations with the trailblazers, thought leaders, decision makers, and investors who are defining the gaming and esports space. On the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, we take a journey into this dynamic industry and start to decode and reveal who and what's making news. It's about connecting, and it's about sharing the stories and vision of the people who make gaming and esports a global phenomenon. And now, please welcome your host, student of the game and connector to the esports community, Tommy Knapp.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tommy Knapp, and this is an all-new episode of the Level Up Podcast presented by the Ultimate Gamer. On today's show, I have a conversation with Markel Lee, co-owner and chief creative officer at AoE Creative. He was a finalist for the Tempest Up-And-Comer of the Year award and was one of the chief executives responsible for the creative power behind OpTic Gaming, the Houston Outlaws, PvP Live, Evo, and Panda X Gaming. He is also a founding member of Infinite Esports Entertainment and the Houston Outlaws. Markel has a passion for championing, that's a very difficult word to say, diversity, excellence, and professionalism in the gaming world, and often mentors younger designers into strong roles. Once we arranged ourselves behind our mics, Markel and I started talking about something new, innovative, and definitely outside the box called the Fan-Controlled Football League. He then went on to take me on a journey from his Halo days to working as the creative director for Infinite Esports and an entire rebrand for top org Nerd Street Gamers. Then we dove deep into the process of building a brand, from the creative brief to the mood board to the logo and to the style guide. And after taking us through the across stories of many of the biggest brands in esports, we ended on his love for the space. Here we are with Markel Lee.
So we met up at DreamHack Dallas, I think.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what's been going on since then? What was that now? About a year ago?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Was I don't remember the exact date that DreamHack was, but I assume it was around roughly this time, summertime, I believe.
Okay.
Not fully sure.
Yeah, I mean, I went to I don't know how many. I think they do like 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 events around the world, and did the one in Atlanta, then did the one in Dallas. So it's good to catch up with you in Dallas, man. So what's been going on since then? I wanted to tell you. I mean, I always do, obviously do some research, do my homework. I saw something very cool that you were working on. To me, it seems cool. I don't know where it is right now, but the FCFL. What's that about, man? Are you allowed to talk about it?
I mean, I can talk about what I know so far.
Okay.
I know. So we're recording already, right?
Yeah. And if you want to move that mic again a little closer to you, because it's like even that.
I'll just move closer.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
So for the FCFL, we kind of ran into them. It was one of the times we were in Vegas, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was for. I think it was one of the game conferences out in Vegas at the time. And we ran into them to kind of talk about, exactly what they're trying to do with the league, what they're trying to do with the teams. The entire concept of the FCFL was to make it to where the fan base and the audience gets the opportunity to, pick everyone on the roster, pick everyone on the team, as well as pick the plays that are actually going to be played on the field. So fans have control over what happens. That way it's not an excuse of, oh man, if I was the coach, I would have been able to do X, Y, Z. It's more of an idea of, we get to decide. And if, it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But that's all up to the fans to pick and choose. As of right now, they have a few influencers, of course.
Yeah, so Markel, tell us exactly what FCFL means, because I don't think most people probably don't even know what it means. When you say calling plays and all that stuff, people are probably, they don't know if we're talking about gaming right now or what sport it is.
No. So the FCFL is Fan-Controlled Football League, and yes, the idea is that they have a shorter field, but still pretty much similar to like indoor football arena. And the idea, like I said, is that the fans with their mobile device, while they're watching the game, while they're at the venue, get to pick and choose what plays that the offense runs. for that. So they have the opportunity of interacting with their teams and deciding what happens, even when it comes to roster changes and the staff that's involved with the team. So it gives them a large opportunity. As of right now, we've been kind of on hold waiting on them. They have influencers that they picked up, some like, Marshawn Lynch, Sherman, I'm trying to think of everyone else because it's been a while, and also like Mike Tyson, I believe is one of the influencers as well. They have all of them that kind of sign on right now as leaders of the team. So even the fans get to decide the team logo, team name, depending on the influencer that is running the team or the face of the team.
And you guys are working on the branding and marketing strategy, and I'm just right? Is that correct?
Yeah, we were previously. Like I said, as of right now, they're still working on getting all their stuff in line. Of course, like investment for things like that are very crucial.
Sure.
And making sure that they have all the team influencers lined up for whenever they decide to launch.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about, because I played back in the day. I played college ball. I'm just thinking how quickly. And I guess this is just like a fan engagement with fantasy sports and things like that. But how quickly, so now quarterback, because this isn't gaming. We're actually talking about the fans being engaged through their mobile device, but them playing on an actual field, like they're playing a real football game, like you said, arena, a smaller field. So you go back in the huddle with me, you're the quarterback, and what do you do? Like is it coming through your headset? Like
I'm assuming that's the technology that they're looking into, is to find ways where that information goes straight to the coach, who also says that straight to the team. So the quarterback gets that play and like, all right, cool, we're running this play. And that's kind of how it goes. I think the team still has, a little bit of leeway to make adjustments, audibles when necessary. But for the most part, the fans have pretty much full control over what happens kind of on the field.
I love the idea. It's awesome.
Yeah, the idea seems very interesting, man.
Yeah. I think it's pretty cool. And if you are like calling the plays, so that's total engagement, right? So you're not a Monday morning quarterback. You're actually engaged and you're calling the plays. Now, if you go out and you're a quarterback, like you said, you changed it at the line of scrimmage and something happened, gets busted up or whatever, I'd like really be like, what's going on? You should have called my play. I mean, think about it. I mean, with Marshawn Lynch, that's probably a perfect example. And I think I saw a pot, but like that play at the 1 yard line.
He should have ran it. He should have ran it.
Sure.
Then you don't have the opportunity to say he didn't run it because you had the choice and you made the choice.
Yeah.
So fully, 100%. Like I think their idea and their concept is great. Once they get up and running, I mean, I would love to, dive deeper into that brand. But that was one of the brands that we started with at AoE Creative. So that was, a while back when that was one of the companies that we jumped on and decided to help out from the jump. We did help them work out their website and a few other branding ideas kind of in the background. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see them actually get up and get running and have things going for them. Because, the things you could do, and I mean, we sit on ideas every day, right? And what we do every day is just like get into the office and just hammer out ideas that we think are good concepts and fun concepts, and already had a multitude of different ideas for like commercials or advertisement or ways they could promote that makes themselves distinguish themselves differently than, of course, NFL or XFL or any of the other ones that are coming out at the time. So it's definitely like some interesting stuff that we want to be involved in, and also work with concepts that, most traditional sports don't do. And that's also the reason why we love video gaming community, because we have the opportunity of doing things that other industries, other mediums don't have the opportunity to do or don't have the capabilities of actually accomplishing, because of the stuff that the gaming community can bring to the table that others just cannot.
Yeah. So that's kind of a hybrid, what we're talking about, which is one of the reasons why I think it potentially could really work and really work well. But you mentioned AoE, and you mentioned kind of this is something that you guys started back in the day a little bit. Draw us back even further in the day. Kind of tell us a little bit more about how you got into gaming. Are you a gamer? Your whole role right now in esports, and then that'll lead us finally into AoE Creative at the end. But like, how did you start getting into the space?
Yeah, no problem at all. Like, so I've came from the traditional ad agency realm, but I've been a gamer my entire life. I've been playing games for since I was able to, and started off mainly in FPS, so shooters. Halo was kind of my thing for sure. With all my friends online, my friends locally, I was definitely the guy that you would go over his house and we'll lock up LAN some like Xboxes so that we could play Halo matches, AV8s or 4v4s, and have a good time, locally or at small little tournaments and events that other people will host. So definitely been in the gaming aspect my entire life. I went to college, enjoyed college, did a lot of graphic design, and really wanted to focus on, which was
Hey, Markel.
Yes.
I lost you for a second. I lost you probably for about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Could you kind of say, you said you went to school. Where'd you go to college?
I went to college at Texas State University.
Okay.
And from there, I was able to, get my degree in communication design. From there, I went to Austin, where I was working with an ad agency called Market Matters, which is now like White Hat agency in Austin, and did a lot of great work with them. And it was great to work with them and see kind of how the traditional ad side of things work. And I wanted to transition that myself into gaming because of my passion for being a gamer.
Approximately how long ago was this, like year-wise?
I would say I worked with them 2011.
Okay.
I stayed in Austin for roughly around 3 to 4 years, working with them at that agency. But while I was working with them on the sideline, I was freelancing for different esports teams, personalities. And one of the companies that I ended up like leaving to help out with was Versus Gameplay. Which was a local group that I initially got introduced to by some pro players, or basically the pro player Manny, who's like a Dead or Alive top 10, or actually the best competitor at the time, let me know that there was a community in Dallas, my hometown, that was building and kind of needed help. So I came to Dallas and helped build the scene here, especially for the fighting game community. I'm not good at fighters. Don't ask me. I'm pretty trash, but I do enjoy that community a lot because I think we were talking about this at DreamHack. Like that community has so much energy that's different. Like all the different genres in the gaming industry have a different feel when you go to their event.
Right.
Everyone does things differently, and I really do enjoy the fighting game community energy and the way that those events are, and the fact that they're grassroots and also like one of the most diverse groups in the gaming community. So I had a real respect for that, and I helped build the local scene up, which helped me go to like larger events where we ran Absolute Battle with Panda Gaming, which I ended up joining to do production for these grassroots events where we're making these grassroots event look like the production 6 figures when we honestly had like maybe 4, right. But making it look amazing with little to nothing that we had and a team of like 2 or 3. And that ended up pushing me further within the community because I started working with larger events like the CEOs and Combo Breakers and the EVOs, which are the larger top tier events in the fighting game community, doing production and also doing some marketing and advertisement for other different fighting game events within the realm. And then again, that just snowballed to me running into working with EG, to me working with different groups like PvP Live and a couple other companies, as well as some influencers. Even had the opportunity to work with Golden Boy at a certain point. And then it transitioned to being the creative director at Infinite when Infinite was going on, right. And running into Simon Bennett, which is my business partner here. And we kind of worked, he was the VP of marketing, I was a creative director. We worked side by side to, again, do stuff for OpTic Gaming, Houston Outlaws, and other major companies under that umbrella. So we were building like 10 brands at the same time in the same year. And once, we worked with each other for a while and we figured like we have an opportunity because more people were interested in the work that we've done and the work that we do, that we can branch off and create AoE Creative and kind of start our own agency, because we noticed that within this space, there's no major design creative agency within the space that came from this space. Okay. A lot of creative agencies came from outside that's trying to understand this community a lot, and proving it with the previous clients that we've worked with, that we know what we're doing and we know how to speak to this audience, and we as gamers understand what type of advertisement that we would appreciate, instead of those who just come in and throw money at the scene. So that's why we create AoE Creative, and we've been going for almost 2 years now. So it's been interesting and very, very exciting process.
So give me an example, because it always helps, right? It helps everybody understand a little bit better. Give me an example maybe of one or two of your clients, and kind of walk us through how you guys engage with them, and then what you do for them, that whole process. And I know each client's going to be a little bit different. So, maybe pick one where you really help them out from A to Z, like they didn't know what they were doing, to somebody that you kind of came in and you were supportive in the role that you took with them, because they had a much better idea of what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, I can start off easily and talk about a lot of the stuff that we did with Nerd Street Gamers, for instance. Okay. Yeah. For those who don't know, Nerd Street Gamers is a group in Philly. They own a few venues, and they run a few major tournaments for kind of the amateur leagues right before you go to the major leagues, especially for Overwatch, CSGO, and stuff like that. And basically, when they came to us, they've been doing it for some years, but their logo didn't do what they wanted to represent as themselves. They had a skull, crossbones, and glasses on the skull. And they wanted something that actually represented exactly what Nerd Street Gamers was, which is pretty much an umbrella company that has all these other gaming aspects under it. And they know that when they're going and having these meetings, or they're going and they're speaking to the community, that the skull and crossbones can be kind of, push people away from the brand as much, instead of making people feel more inclusive. Right. Yeah, exactly. A little off-putting. So they wanted to change that up, because that's not exactly what they represented, and that's not how they wanted to be represented. So when we worked with them, I mean, we created, we go through the whole full creative process. So for us, the biggest thing that's important to us is designing something, not designing something just because it's cool. And we notice that that's a big issue within the gaming esports community, is that most people design because it looks good. Like, I made the design. What does it mean? I don't know. It just looks great, right? Right. And it's like, yeah, it looks good. At the end of the day, I mean, then you're going to have to change it later, because it just has no longevity, right? And so we preach that to all the brands that we work with. And even with a lot of the esports teams that we work with, we've had that conversation with them where it's, we created our brand, it looks good, but we don't have a story. We don't have a narrative. And now, especially because of all the money pouring into the community, people are starting to wonder, like, how does my brand live, down the line a few years later? How do we distinguish ourselves from the other esports teams outside of just our name and our legacy from winning? Right? Yeah,
man, and that's gotta be really challenging, right, Markel? Because when you think about esports, you think about gaming, it's just everything happens so quickly, and you have to having a brand that maybe you can tweak and that can pivot a little bit this way or a little bit that way may be important. Or are you saying that just at your core, that's what you really need to think about is, whatever happens to the community, this will still speak to our core values and our culture?
Definitely. And that's what, again, when everybody thinks of major brands, they always want to go, oh, yeah, Nike or Apple and stuff like that. And it's like, well, they solidified themselves. They made a brand motto, slogan, tagline, and they made a whole story and movement around their entire brand. And that's the reason why those brands are always put in those conversations, right? When Nike created the Just Do It campaign, they lived it. Their brand lived it. Their fan base lived it. Most people look at the Nike campaign and they see the Just Do It, right? And they don't understand that the whole point of that campaign, the reason why it works, is because they built a story and a narrative behind it. They built a movement behind the Nike Just Do It campaign. And because of that movement, that's what ties their fan base to that brand. That's what makes people want to be a part of that brand, regardless of the products that they sell, right? They want to showcase and tell other people why their brand is so cool. And when you think of esports teams have to start thinking about that narrative moving forward, right? Especially when people start looking at different teams and esports teams and they go, we need to do something different with our brand. I guess we should be 100 Thieves. And no, you shouldn't be 100 Thieves. You should be your own entity. You should be your own brand, but you need to figure out what that is and make people follow you, right? 100 Thieves is great for 100 Thieves. They took that, they ran with that, they made it theirs. They knew exactly what they wanted to be outside of just a winning or competing esports team to mainly being focused on content and personality and the, of course, merch and apparel and lifestyle that they want to bring with that team. And, you know, that's great. And other teams can do the same, but in their own way, in their own format. Everyone doesn't need to go streetwear, right? Everyone doesn't need to do the same cookie cutter routines that all esports teams do. Build your own, make other people follow you. And to kind of get back to what we were talking about initially, like Nursery Gamers was thinking about that heavily. They want to make Nursery Gamers feel a little bit more official, as well as to express to the world basically that they are inclusive, friendly, and open to anyone coming in. Their whole goal was to get their fan base to come into their venues so they can learn how to be actual gamers. Outside of just being a gamer, learning how to do production, learning how to do the back end of things that most people don't consider when it comes to running an event. And so what we ran through exercise after exercise with our creative brief, which is the most important part of any design process. But we notice a lot of people in esports and gaming don't do that part, right? Where it comes to explaining who your brand is, what your brand wants to be, how do you want your brand to be perceived, how do you want your brand to speak on social media and to the public, like thinking about all those little aspects, like what's your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats within your company, and who are your actual competitors, why are they competitors, and what makes you more unique. And we go through that whole process and even run through a few exercises to build a little bit more narrative behind what the actual client wants from their brand and what they want it to be. The reason why you do a creative brief is because a lot of times people want the brand to be what they want, what they like. But sometimes the brand doesn't call for what you like. The brand calls for what the audience needs. And you have to go through that process to do so. And that's kind of what we ran with Nursery Gamers to build this new look and feel, where it's like new look, but the same nerds was the campaign that we pushed with them.
I like that.
Where we have a different logo, we changed, and we're doing something a lot more clean and a lot more official, but we're the same nerds that you've been playing with forever. And we're not about to change that. Yeah. We're just going to make this we're going to take the next step in our future throughout this brand and throughout all the aspects underneath this umbrella company that we have as Nursery Gamers.
When you go through that process, who are the main, so I'm assuming with maybe smaller orgs that you're just dealing with one person, and that's the owner of the business, the founder of the business. But sometimes when you're talking about bigger orgs, you may be talking to an owner, a founder, and then somebody that's either the chief marketing officer or the vice president of marketing. Like, is that more challenging? Because again, one of the things you're talking about is like, if it's just you and I, and we kind of come up with these ideas and we have the creative brief and we throw out, here's what the logo looks like, here's our concept, here's our tagline, all those things that we're talking about, our purpose, our mission statement. If it's just the two of us, we can make those decisions pretty easily, right? We just kind of go back and forth and we think it through. But when you have multiple people involved in something like that, is that much more challenging?
Actually, when we have the creative brief section of things, we prefer that you have at least, 3 to 4 people, preferably. The reason why, like the people who's going to make a decision. The last thing you want to do in a meeting is talk to someone that might be C-level, but not the CEO or the owner. And then you create all of this great stuff. And by the end of it, the owner finally steps in at the end and like, that's not what I wanted. Because then now you just have to scrap the whole project. So we prefer that anybody who's going to be the major decision makers to be in that meeting initially. That way we all can sign off on what we know and feel that the brand is. So, for instance, when we work with a lot of these different companies, even with the FCFL and Nursery Gamers, one of the most controversial parts, which is actually a very great thing, is when we go through some of the exercises where we kind of go through, if your brand was this type, if your brand was, let's say, a car, right? What kind of car would it be? And those type of conversations are really, really useful for brands, because it gets the opportunity where one person might think it's this, another person might think it's that. And then now you got to say, okay, cool. Now, remember the conversation we was having before. You want to be inclusive. You want to be friendly and fun, but you also want to have like a little bit of a laid back type feel. Do you really think a Ferrari works for that? Or is that because that's your preference, right? And then that's where everybody starts to think about their brand in a new light. And when you have all those decision makers in that call, they have to get to a point where they agree. Otherwise, then we're not going to move forward until we can figure out exactly what everybody wants this brand to become, because that solidifies what we design later. This creative process beforehand is way before we touch any design. And it's necessary and crucial, because once we're done with the creative brief and everybody goes, yes, I agree with that, then you have sign off and you know that we're all on the same page. So then that transitions over to the mood board, where we go, cool, because of everything that we agreed upon here, this mood board expresses all of that. Is that correct? And you get another approval, because you never want your client to not feel a part of the process. That completely defeats the purpose, right? If the client doesn't feel like they're tied to any of the aspects that you're presenting them, and they have a product at the end of the day that's just like, okay, cool, like that doesn't help me or represent me, but I guess I'll take it, I paid for it. You want them to be emotionally attached to it, just like we are emotionally attached to giving them the best product. And so we go through those processes to make sure that we stay on point. And usually after the creative brief, when we get to the mood board, we're pretty much on point. I think there was only one client where we had to kind of go back a little bit. And then from that process, you go to, okay, cool, now we can get to looking at different roughs and creating, once we create the logo, create the style guide. Once we create the style guide, we start implementing pieces and parts that represent your brand in different aspects outside of just social media and digital, which we also like to advocate for, doing things that are more than just social graphics.
Sure. Yeah, I could see what you're saying. If you've got whoever the decision makers are on board, 3, 4, 5 people, you get a sense of ownership. When you're the owner, you own the business. But being part of that process and making decisions, even though you're not going to get exactly what it is that you want. And a lot of times, I'm sure, because I just think about myself, a lot of times people are probably not even sure what they want, right? So going through that process helps them define that, and then creates ownership, creates passion for that brand, and then everybody's going forward. Like you said, even though it's probably changed from maybe what they first envisioned, now they're all on board and they're moving forward in the right direction together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole point of building a brand, especially when you get to the process of creating your style guide, is to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Like, you want everyone voicing exactly what you want for your brand at the C level, at the employee level, even down to your janitor, as well as going to the fan base and the community. If anyone is saying something different, it makes it confusing. Like, the reason why major brands work very well and their branding is so effective is because they keep that narrative throughout their brand in all aspects. And so if you don't have that, and you don't have that unity, and your CEO thinks different than your CCO, which thinks different than your employee, which thinks different than the person that's actually paying for your product, then that doesn't resonate very well, and people get confused or upset, and it starts to alienate that fan base and your audience away from your brand.
Yeah, man, you just made a really good point. And I've been, in traditional pro sports for over a decade. I spent over a decade there. And I went through this process with at that time it was called Miami FC, which was a pro soccer team. And then we rebranded to the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, which was an old brand that we brought back. We went through this process. It was very interesting. But I know a lot of teams, and I want to get your ideas or thoughts about this. a lot of teams make the fans part of that process too. Do you
Yes.
think that does that open a can of worms? Because again, first of all, your fan base, let's just use a round number, 10,000 fans. Nobody's, you're never going to have everybody wants the exact same thing, right? And then down here in South Florida, you've got a Latin market combined with, your typical, mainstream market, if you will. And so you've got different people, like, should it be a Latin logo? Should it be, like the Miami Dolphins are an animal, or mammal, so, but I just wonder, like, that process of going and actually reaching out to the fan base. I think it's good because they take ownership of the team. But if you go in a completely different direction, or if, you get 70% of the people say, we want this, and you're like let's say that you said the skull and bones or crossbones, like the Los Angeles Raiders or the Las Vegas Raiders now, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, that's a skull and crossbones. Maybe that doesn't fit with what the owner wants. So now, like, 70% of the fans are saying, we want this pirate kind of, or marauder, this, and then the owner's like, no, I'm thinking, like, roses and dandelions or whatever. I mean, like, what's your thought process? What do you think about bringing the fans into that conversation, that discussion?
It honestly depends on exactly what you're trying to accomplish with your brand. So it definitely depends on what you want to get out of that. There are opportunities where using your fan base could be a great opportunity. Usually what I would say is more so you need to be paying attention to your community. Like, you don't go, like, exactly the example that you have, right? The Raiders, like, it would be a horrible idea to switch them over to the roses and petals and stuff like that, because the fan base would annihilate that brand.
Crazy.
Because of that, right? So you have to understand what the fan base wants, but also understand what the brand needs to accomplish, and then kind of marry the two, right? Like, even if you want to change some things up, you need to change those in a way that's not going to upset your community. And that's more about understanding who your audience is, who you're talking to, what they're asking for, what they're looking for, and also what your brand needs in order to nurture and grow. Because sometimes the major change, unfortunately, is the right thing. Even if you lose fan base initially, you have to grow the rest of that fan base that is going to come organically after the fact. So it's more about research than anything. And that's, again, the reason why we go through the creative brief. The creative brief isn't just us asking you questions. The creative brief is us doing our homework beforehand as best we can, and then talking with the client to get more of an understanding and focus on who they think they are, who they want their brand to be. Make sure that, again, we're aligned, both parties, and then executing properly from there, using the stuff we know from the community, as well as, general understanding of the marketing agency, creative lifestyle that needs to go with any type of brand, especially nowadays with social and all the different aspects that need to change because of the ways that we communicate.
Right. So talk about how long that process can typically take. Give us a range, and then I'm thinking for esports and gaming, for you guys, it's got to be a lot of fun, first of all, because you're creative people, and so this got to be great for you guys to be involved in this. But when you look at an org, right, it's completely different than, I've been talking to some people about this, than traditional sports, right? Traditional sports, you come up with your logo and your brand and your vision, and that's it. That's your brand. You might do some other stuff that maybe you do, like a youth side, and you maybe have some breakout verticals underneath that umbrella. But in an esports, typical esports org right now, you used 100 Thieves earlier, you've got multiple teams underneath one umbrella, and then maybe even influencers, like you said. So, when I look in our backyard here, Misfits Gaming owns the Florida Mayhem, the Florida Mutineers, and then they've got, so when you're looking at that, obviously you're going into it at first, you've got to come up with this org, and it's got to have this, but then are you thinking ahead about, okay, if you guys open up a Call of Duty franchise, or if Valorant ends up starting a new league and you guys put a team in there, we're going to come up with something that's underneath that umbrella that kind of fits, or is completely, it's never going to be separate, but that's got to be, I'm assuming that's got to be a difficult challenge for you guys. But
at the end of, again, coming back to it, the whole point is to build that narrative and story ahead of time, right? If you're building an esports team whose major focus is winning, then maybe you need to build your brand to be that team that is, we're the elite of the elite. We win everything, and we will continue to win everything. So we will condition ourselves and our fan base to know that this is the best team if you want to represent the best team within the league. Passing up, like, of course, being completely opposite of what 100 Thieves is, right? When it's like, we're just focusing on competitive play. And in that case, our merch represents that. Our graphics represent that. It doesn't matter if we're playing League of Legends to CSGO, to a Fortnite, etc., or a fighting game. We represent that at all costs. Our players will come out as professionals to the stage. Our narrative every time we do videos will be about how much more professional and great our team and players are, as well as how we structure our organization as a whole. When you go to something similar to like 100 Thieves and you say, hey, or a phase, you go like, all right, content is king for us. That's what we're building. Our narrative is that we are the cool kids, right? We are the team that your team wants to be. We are the team that you want to buy our limited merch. We're the team that you want to go to the party with. So we're going to build that aspect in anything, regardless if that's our team. Our team is professional and we definitely want them to win. But when we give that narrative and we give that aspect of the team, we're also tying that back to the fun aspect of being on this team, right? So whatever narrative you decide to build, whatever narrative you decide to go with, wherever you say, hey, this is who we are and what we want to do, then you push that at all bounds in all aspects. Again, you need to make that sing throughout everything that you give out to your community. Otherwise, again, you start becoming too fragmented and you start building weird narratives that people don't understand. Like, you can make branches off of it. Again, if we're going back to Nike, they have different aspects that mean different things. Nike as a whole, just do it, but they might have, their skate brand, which is a little bit more edgy. But at the same time, it's still pushing the Just Do It campaign, even though it's doing it in a different style and a different flavor. So you have to figure out what that core meaning is of the team or the brand and make sure that can stretch out to anything and everything else that you touch.
And so we talked about how long does that process, the original process, how long does that take from concept to actually being ready to launch?
So if you're talking more about the creative brief to the mood board aspect before any design, it can take up to 1 to 2 weeks. And it all depends on, of course, the client, how responsive they are, how quick they want to make moves. Because if they're very responsive and they're like, okay, cool, we had a meeting, we're good, we're ready to go with this, it can take a week. It can go to 2 weeks if there's like, okay, let's take some more time out to think about this, because that core creative brief is crucial to everything that's get made after that. So you want to be smart about exactly how you approach that. Make sure all of that is exactly aligned with everything that you want, and then everything trickles down from there. And of course, depending on the project, depending on the needs, depends on how long that design process takes, because different aspects require different timing, right? If it's a social media header, it's gonna be less than a week, right? If it's doing like the whole social brand look and feel style of thing. If it's a website, it's going to take a month or two if you want to do it properly, right? You want to make sure that that brand is transitioned all the way through and make sure that user experience between, the website or watching that website on your phone is perfect. So depending on that changes depending on the project, but for the creative brief, about a week or two.
Right. And then as far as regarding like social channels and stuff, because you were talking about that, do you see in gaming, like which ones are the most powerful, if you will, or the most common or have the largest audience right now, whether you're talking about, Facebook or Twitter or Twitch or TikTok, or where do you, because again, like you said, right now we're trying to get a message out. We've got a brand. We're talking about all these things. How are we relaying that brand to our audience? And is there a different, the narrative might be the same, but there's a different way of attacking each one of those. Instagram obviously is different than LinkedIn or Twitch.
Yeah. For the teams that are doing it the best, it's definitely a lot of the teams that have the influencers, right? Or they have the personalities on their team. The teams that build around the personalities that are in the brand properly are the ones that get the most engagement. And like you said, even with the Overwatch League, how Overwatch is. right? We both had to work with them, and currently we still work with them. When we were building the Houston Outlaws, the idea was a lot of the players on our team, we purposely didn't pick just a full team of Koreans because of what Houston represents, and we wanted the team to represent Texas, and we wanted to feel like a team of American players. We did have some South Koreans, of course, but we didn't want to just pick a team that's just going to win. We wanted to pick a team that can easily represent the brand properly. And so that came down to, again, Jake was on our team, and we utilized him a lot because he was a great personality to express kind of what the Houston Outlaws represented, where it was, we're outlaws, but we're not bad people. It's more like vigilantes, right? We're doing what we can for the good of the people. And we pushed that narrative in our Band Together campaign with the Houston Outlaws season 1, because it was an opportunity to say, hey, we are this group of misfits, like using y'all's name, but we are a group of team that come from, a different game. We came here. Most people don't know us yet, and that's okay. You don't need to know us. You will find us and understand us as we go. We play and we represent the Houston Outlaws. And the Band Together campaign was to showcase our love and support, especially I'm a Texan, and you know how Texas is about our pride. And so Houston, of course, being a major city in Texas, and their pride, especially when it comes to their sports team, a lot of our fan base was just happy that they had a team represent them properly within esports and gaming, because they felt like, now I have something that represents me and what I like, instead of just having to represent, a basketball team or a football team or any other baseball team. Like, this represents what I do on a daily, and a lot of people were emotionally attached to that.
Yeah.
And we gave back to that community. Band Together, for us, we had Houston, Austin, and San Antonio, so we had 3 cities. So we had the opportunity of saying, cool, let's help build our fan bases in each one of those cities. Let's send off merchandise to each one of those cities. That way, when people go to the watch parties, they can get collectibles. And those collectibles were per city, like specific to that city. So when you went to Houston, you got a poster of a rocket to represent NASA because of Houston, right? When you went to Austin, you had a mural of 6th Street. When you went to San Antonio, you got a poster that was the Riverwalk, as well as all these little parts and pieces that represented that city, even though it all represents as a whole. And so the idea was for us to tell the community, hey, when you go to those other cities, go out to your other fans, meet your other fans, see them, pick up the poster, pick up the collectibles. Like, y'all share together, y'all talk together, especially since our team is in LA, because all the teams played in LA at the time. Right. So it's, again, building a narrative and showing the community that you care, and you're not here just to tell them to buy your product. Like, no, we'll spend a little money too, because we care about your growth. We care about you. We know that you guys make us and make our team what it is, and you will continue to promote and push us, because we will continue to promote and push you as well.
That's great example, great case study. What are some other in gaming esports? Give me like maybe 2 or 3, and if you got more than that, you can share more, but 2 or 3 of your favorite, whether you guys have worked on them, and it could be, specific ones you've worked on, but other stuff that you guys haven't worked on too. When you look at something and go, damn, that's a good brand. Those guys, they did a really good job, not just with their mark, which is super cool and people want to wear it, but with their message to whoever their community is.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, 100 Thieves is easy to push out. First off, mainly because they went very well with, again, going with the personality of Nayshot, and kind of running with what he does, what he represents, his community, his fan base, and integrating them properly into his new brand, especially when it comes to streetwear. I think Team Liquid is doing a great job, especially as a pretty top tier esports competitive team, but not just focusing just solely on that, but also showing that they can have a good time. I think the collab they did with Marvel was amazing, especially because it's, again, we are all nerds. We love this just like you love this. And we partnered up with Marvel to create esports gaming and nerd culture type jerseys that represent, again, what our fan base want and what our fan base like. Not just going, even though they do have some like streetwear type brands, because they wanted to jump into that, and they did very well with those that apparel. But they also said we're nerds and we embrace that and we want to show that. So a lot of stuff that Liquid does, I think, is great, and it's a different aspect, from the 100 Thieves, which is content heavy, influencer heavy, to competitive heavy, and to showing that structure is, we're one of the premier teams in esports in general, right? We also did an article about Mad Lions for Spice, right? When they made that change, when they went, you know what, we're going to just do a complete U-Haul because of the community that we're trying to represent with the Latin community, right? We're going to make more of a Spanish team that represents that gets that feel of, soccer, because that's what that community is, in love with, based around, and we want to give that feeling and doing it properly and not just making something and just being like, yo, it's cool, right? Like, no, we actually want to tie in the Latin aspect to our brand and to the way that we represent and to the way that we speak to our community. So there's definitely some esports teams that's trying, that's doing well. You see some that I'm interested to see where they are going to go with that. For instance, like Evil Geniuses. There is a way for them to make that work. And I definitely know they're in the process of it. But I am curious about where they want to go, because embracing kind of like the evil aspect of Evil Geniuses, if they use that correctly, they can make their team a fun team to be associated with. Something that we talk to other teams about is sometimes it's not about being everybody's number one. It's about being other people's number two sometimes, right? Because if you go, for instance, in League of Legends, and you going and you competing against these teams with massive, long legacies within that game, you're not going to take their fan base away from them, right? But what you can do is, well, when they're not representing, like when they're not rooting for Cloud9, when they're not rooting for Liquid, they root for my team as a second option because we're fun, engaging, we have a great story and narrative, and people just want to watch us play because of the way that we represent ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. And honestly, you might get more fan base because of that, because you're not here to just steamroll everyone. You're here to have a good time and build the narrative and story for your team better than, anyone else. And sometimes it's just being you and enjoying your brand and just showing that, hey, we're just having a good time within this community. We love our fan base and we love having just a party every time we go, right? In some type of sense.
That's super interesting. I had not even thought about that, what you just said. And again, when we're talking about orgs and esports having multiple teams across multiple titles, as a Miami Dolphins fan, my analogy that you used, I also like the Chicago Bears back in the day. Walter Payton was a big fan. I was a big fan of Walter's. That was in football, though, right? That was in football. But in baseball, my favorite team was the Yankees, and in basketball, it was the 76ers. So I had all these teams that I supported across multiple titles. So if you are huge, 100 Thieves fan in, I don't know, if it's league that they've got like a team in, you could have a completely different org or team that you're a fan of in Overwatch, and another, exactly, in Call of Duty. And I haven't really thought that through, but because so many of those brands represent so many different titles, there's a lot of opportunity to be number one and or be number two or three.
I mean, and in some cases, some people don't know about the other teams. Like I remember being in the fighting game community, right? Evil Geniuses was massive in the fighting game community back then, mainly because of all the top tier players that they had on the team. And so a lot of people knew Evil Geniuses because of their fighting game community, but a lot of people in the fighting game community didn't even know that they won Dota, right? They didn't even know. They was like, I don't even know what Dota is. It's like they know what they know in the genre that they love, right? And so again, if you build in that narrative between all or through all your different games, even within the same company, like it doesn't matter if they know every aspect of your company. You just want them to love what they love about that team or that group of people, those personalities, and eventually it'll get you to transition over. Like a lot of those people are like, oh, so they do that too? Like, all right, I might watch because I just now found out. So, I mean, it's, again, the biggest thing that I just think is a fail here right now in esports is just building that story and building that narrative. And I love being, like, me and my team entirely, we love being on projects where we can do full campaigns, or we can build more of that narrative and that story, especially when it's outside of just digital aspect. As of right now, we're doing a lot of digital because of, the crisis that's going on at the moment. But it's fun when we get back to the point where we're able to go to events or go out and actually promote and do things at live events that other groups aren't even considering, or other teams aren't even doing, because they don't think about what do we need to do to engage our fans outside of just the video that we posted or the tweet that we just made, right? And it's always fun, especially when you do see those people in person and that community in person, to get that love, that general love for the brand back to you, because they're just so excited that someone is doing something for them, and it's not always the brand asking of them and not giving back.
Tell me a little bit about non-endemics in a space that are doing a good job, and then weave your way in, because you're talking about doing some stuff in some events, that we're not able to go to right now, but maybe some things that you guys have planned, whether it's event-wise or whether it's just other esports related activities and activations that you guys are part of. What's on the calendar for you guys? So first, non-endemics, like who's doing it right as far as non-endemics that got into space? Did you see that thing on Wendy's the other day? I think it was like 2 weeks ago.
Yes. That's honestly what I was going to bring up, because it was a smart play, because Wendy's they're doing a lot of good marketing moves right now. They have a really strong team, and it's very interesting to kind of see how they work. I am kind of curious of what they'll do with esports teams as much, but for gaming, they're being very smart, especially with the whole freezer campaign or no freezer campaign.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Yeah, share a little bit.
Yeah, so
if people haven't heard of it, when I read that, I was like, man, this is one of the better. Really, really well done.
I forgot what day was it. It was like National Burger Day or something like that.
Whatever.
It was one of the days where it was just talking about burgers. I think it was like National Burger Day. Yeah. And Wendy's took it upon themselves to be very smart on advertising within the game without having to spend any money advertising in that game the traditional way. And so what they did was they looked on Fortnite, because Fortnite was having this major event, and they found a character that had, red hair and a hood. And they basically kind of quote unquote made it Wendy, and ran around everywhere in every map, live on Twitch, smashing every refrigerator that they can see, because they go against, of course, their meat is never frozen, right? So they had this long campaign where they had themselves go around on every Fortnite map and smash freezers. That was pretty much it.
Dude, it was great. Like, and Markel, I was wondering, like, who did they have doing that? Was it like me and you? Or did they have like a bunch of employees, or did their agency?
I am very curious myself. I mean, I don't know who they worked with. Again, we understand that there's a lot of agencies that come within the space that don't fully know the space, but there are some agencies that know how to do their homework. And so, of course, whoever they worked with was really smart about, hey, if you want to do this, here's a good, easy way to go viral. You can they end up getting like influencers and other Twitch streamers involved, because they started noticing this. And so they started doing it, and everybody started doing it, and it just became its own little movement within the game to smash all the freezers, to the point where Fortnite was just removed freezers because of how effective the branding was, also without their say-so. So when you do that, when you move so well that the actual developer has to go, all right, now we just got to cut this off. Like, you did something good. And I mean, I would love to be in a boardroom like that with those type of ideas. Like it's always fun when you work with a client that listens.
Right.
You're like,
Right.
look, if you do this, this will, like, you don't understand how much the community will love you. And that was a very successful campaign for them, for sure.
Yeah. Very cool. And what do you guys got coming up?
I mean, for us, currently we're working with the Call of Duty League and Overwatch League.
Okay.
It's been very fun working with them. They definitely, again, with our ties with the Outlaws, as soon as we left Infinite, we detached from teams. So we had the opportunity of, speaking and talking with Blizzard directly. It's very great to be working on their social, but we also did the in-game sprays for all the teams. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
So we did Florida Mayhems as well. We did all the teams that have in-game sprays that kind of represent their city and their location. So we were able to work on that piece, and actually, I mean, it's always great to have that accomplishment. Like, we got something in that AAA game. Like, that's pretty nice. As well as work with their social media team to help out with the league, and also, like I said, the Call of Duty League. So those are the big projects that we're definitely working on right now. Outside of that, very excited to be working with this other team, this other developer team that's creating their own game right now. There's not too much I can say about it, but I know that they're in the process of creating, RTS, Sunspirit Games. They're doing a lot, and we have the opportunity of being with them from the ground up and being able to create a lot of assets within the game, even when it comes to, the icons, the social game design, and ways that the UI UX work, and that project has been so exciting to be a part of, and that team has been so great to work with. Like, it's like, you get those dream clients that you work with, and y'all just click and you have a great time. Is like, what we like to do is make sure that we feel like friends and family when we work with clients, because that gives the best experience. Like, we're not looking to be a large agency with like hundreds and hundreds of employees. We'd rather keep it smaller and boutique. That way we can have more of a personal relationship with the clients that we work with, because we feel that's important and crucial to making sure we give the best ability we can when it comes to like supporting them and creating their advertisements and campaigns. And these projects has just been amazing to be a part of.
Yeah, well, and when you get to a point where you guys are, where you're successful and you know what you're doing, and you really you offer a tremendous amount of value to a client, and you don't have aspirations of becoming huge, then you kind of can pick and choose, right? Some of your clients, which allows you to do a lot of things that you're passionate about and really excited about.
Definitely, yeah. It's the opportunity to go, hey, I mean, we're very honest when we talk to clients, because there's no point in like beating around the bush. Like, we're gonna be honest, like, hey, this is where we think you should be. This is where we want to go with the brand. Like, we're always going to consider what you want, what you want to do. But there are times where you run into clients that only want you to do what they want, and it's like, well, we only want this, and it's like, yes, that's cool, we can make that happen. But if you do so, you might miss out on these other opportunities. And at those point in times, sometimes it's okay to be like, all right, well, we as a brand or a company don't feel like we can give you exactly what you're looking for, and that we might need to part ways, right? I think it's a problem when an agency is too into themselves, like, well, we'll just take any and every project, because then you won't do the best work. And we don't want to give anyone any work that we don't feel is the best of our quality. So we definitely love the fact of being able to pick and choose and make sure that we are doing our best to give you everything that we can. Like, we come up with ideas all the time, and we just give them the clients that we're working with, like, regardless if that's within scope or not. Like, hey, we have a really great idea. This is what you can do. If you want it, let us know. Like, we want to see your company grow. We want to see your business thrive. And in order to do so, like, we have to be involved and attached to it almost just as much as you are as the owner or leader of that company. And that's what we pride ourselves on being a part of, and showcasing that We know the gaming community because everyone on our team has been involved in the esports gaming community a long time. And we all have our own passion, and we want to share that with all the clients we work with.
Yeah, we're getting close to the end, but I do want you to kind of touch on that a little bit before we close up. Is that just the ideation process, because that's so much of what you guys do is coming to the table with all these cool, crazy ideas, right? Does it always happen organically when you're in the shower and something just comes to your head, or you're like going to sleep and then you got monkey brain and you're like, the head's just going like crazy and the gears are turning? Or is some of it more manufactured where you're like, okay, Simon and I and whoever else is a part of the team going to sit in a room now and we're going to brainstorm and everybody's going to throw ideas up on a chalkboard? Like, is it a combination of both?
It's a little bit of both. More of the first,
right?
More of the moment where we're sitting here, we're like, yo, hold on, I got a good idea. And then we just go and we're like, yo, so I'm thinking we can do this. And then everybody goes, oh, okay. What if you add this? And it's like, yeah, then we can do this. And we just get into like a random conversation while we're working. And that's another reason, like even through this whole Corona outbreak, we were in Discord with each other the entire time, right? We're talking and chatting all day while we're working on client projects. But we have those moments where, like, while we're designing, we're just like, hey, man, I got a really good idea for this client. Like, yo, this is a really sick thing that we can create. And we kind of just bounce ideas off each other all day. And, of course, jot down the ones that we like, and even some of the ones we don't like, because sometimes you can go back to those ideas and it kicks something else off, or you fine tune it and go, this actually might work, not for this client, but for someone else that we're talking to. And I mean, we advocate that for our employees too. Just like, hey man, if you got an idea, just throw it on the board. We're definitely open to that. And something that I do, and I started doing with my team at Infinite, was every Monday, we would come into the office. We'll have our Monday mornings, discuss what's needed for the week, but we'll also have a portion of that time dedicated to just talking about things we found online that inspire us, either for good or for bad, either way, right? Where you can say, this is a really great example of advertisement. Again, like the Wendy's idea for us. So people who didn't notice it, be like, oh, wow, I didn't even notice that. That was a cool idea. That's very, inspiring to me. Or this is a way not to do social media, right. Let's not make that mistake, right? Yeah. And we do that every Monday and make sure that everybody brings in a piece to that meeting, because it's important to always stay on top of what's happening in the industry, what's happening in design. It doesn't even have to deal with gaming or esports or nerd culture. It can be sports. It can be movies. It could be just real estate. It could be any random thing. But if it's done well, let's talk about it, because those keep inspiring you to learn more, do more, and always keep your mind moving on what's the next topic or what's the next best thing that we can create that might create that movement, that initial spark for a company or one of our clients.
Yeah, I love that, man, because you never know what's going to spark an idea, and sharing things that you see, like you said, whether it's good, bad, and different, but just sharing things, a lot of times that'll trigger something for somebody else that you have no idea. And who knows how that Wendy's campaign came up, but when I saw that, man, immediately I was like, I told my wife, I'm like, this is amazing. This is really thinking, everybody always says outside the box, but to me, that was really thinking outside the box. So for you, we'll end on this. For you, like, if you look like back over your history now and you're looking forward to, I don't know if this is fair really, but I just wonder if there's like is there something where you look at and you go like, that's your Academy Award, or that's like your Super Bowl trophy, or that's your, I can't think of a good gaming analogy for the trophy, but where you like, man, that was good, because a lot of times, like the Wendy's campaign, I have no idea who did that. And when you see, like, sometimes I think Geico, for some reason, I like some of the Geico stuff, I think they get out there, they do some crazy stuff, and back in the day, what was the What's Up? They had that whole campaign.
That never gets old.
Yeah.
Or the Budweiser frogs, right?
Yeah, so the frog, so those, but that's like, so do you have a favorite that you guys have worked on, or, and I don't know if that's really fair because it might be tough. They're all your children, probably, right?
I mean, of course. I mean, yeah, they definitely all are children, but I mean, you have to be honest with yourself. Like sometimes when it's like, you know, there's some projects that I definitely did enjoy or put on that pedestal for me. And for me, I mean, it's stuff I've done before, and I'm trying to figure out like what I want to put over the other, because for me, one of the things that really kicked off my career into gaming and esports, so more of a personal trophy for me, was when I was with Panda Gaming, and we were running all the marketing, advertisement, and production for Absolute Battle, which was a fighting game tournament that literally didn't have that many people. It went from when we started about 300 people to the 2-3 years that we worked on it after that, pretty much reaching 1,000. Again, no budget, but we made that event look pretty high quality, high tier. Like we had a major production staff on there, and it was 3 of us, right? And we ran that event. Like there was too many times where it was, you know, we'll work events and it'll be Friday to Sunday, no sleep, because it's 3 of us, right? and we're working stream by ourselves, going at night, cleaning up, getting ready for the next day, pretty much not able to go to sleep, and then doing it all over again the next day, right? And even though that was hard times, that was one of the most times that you felt appreciated. Like, I've accomplished this and done this by myself with little to no help, or with my team with little to no help. And it was amazing to get me to where I'm at. After that, I would honestly have to say for sure what we did with the Houston Outlaws was very amazing, and it will always stay pretty close to me because we built that brand from scratch, and because a lot of the other teams, especially when you think about like OpTic Gaming, right, were already so well established, right, and you already have such a strong figurehead when it comes to like Hector, that you don't really want to touch that yet. And also because we were new, and I mean, you know, the all the stuff that was going on with that, we as a design team was the only like middle point tying in like Infinite and the people of OpTic in some type of sense. So we had respect on both sides. So for us, the Houston Outlaws was our opportunity of showcasing to both entities as well as everyone else that we can build a brand, do the marketing and campaign for it properly, and build that community organically. And we had the budget and we had the opportunity to do so. And a lot of the stuff that we wanted to do with OpTic, we proved we were able to do with the Houston Outlaws. And it was amazing, especially because of the feedback from the community, the love and respect the community has. I mean, we still, even us and the staff, because a lot of the staff here is still from that Infinite group that we worked with before, still have really close ties to that fan base and that fan group. Like, we still talk to them as friends today because they really love and enjoyed what we brought to the table. So it was more of an emotional connection to that, sure, as well as doing season 1, even though the Houston Outlaws did come like 7th place, was still the top, one of the top esports teams in that league that was mentioned. Outside of course, the people who went to grand finals, right? And so that really weighs heavily with us. Like, that ties to us very strong because we were able to showcase that. And moving forward, I'm really interested in like all the stuff that we're able to do with this developer, Sunspirit Games, because again, we having more of that emotional tie again, where you come from the beginning of it and you see the ground up, you know, what you did to build the foundation, to the structure, to outfitting it, to getting to the point where you finally get to furnish the home that you just built. And we're in that process with the development team. And I mean, we love working with them. They love working with us. And it's just a fun experience, right? And can't wait for them to get, you know, to the point where they potentially get a AAA producer, right, a publisher to push their stuff out. And we get to be there with them when it launches, you know?
Yeah,
so
man.
I love this industry. I love what I do. The rest of the team loves this industry and love what we do. And we want to make sure that is represented in everything that we give out.
Wow, man, it's super exciting. It really is. And I'm very grateful and thankful for your time, bro. It's good to see you.
I appreciate it. We got to definitely catch up after all this mess is going on and things get back regulated and sit down and talk a little bit more for sure.
For sure. All right, Markel. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I definitely appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
All right. Be good. Talk to you later.
Take care.
Ciao.
I'd like to thank Markel for sharing his time, experience, and knowledge with us today. He took me on a thorough voyage of the corporate branding and marketing exercise and talked about how important it is for the entire org to know its identity as it is then expressed to the world. My impression when he was done, take your time and do it right. You can listen to him again now, and you can also find timestamp segments of the show, links to Markel's social pages, and more information about his company, projects, and media in the show notes. If you enjoyed our discussion, please let us know. Continue the conversation with me across all social platforms and become a part of the Ultimate Gamer community today by subscribing at ultimategamer.com. We release a new show every day of the week, Monday through Friday, so be the first to join us for some outstanding upcoming guests and or dive into the library of previous Level Up pods to hear some of the most brilliant minds in the space. Experts like Chief Commercial Officer at G-Loot, Frank Erickson, VP of Gaming at The Switch, Charles Conroy, and VP of Partnerships at Complexity Gaming, Ashley Chalk, just to name a few. You can find all of these episodes and more on the Ultimate Gamer website on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your pods. And finally, please like, rate, and review the show. It helps us to reach the gaming community, to spread the word and share the wisdom of our guests, as well as some of the most thought-provoking stories in the industry. Shout out, as always, to the Ultimate Gamer. I look forward to being with you on the next Level Up podcast.